How's it going, everybody? Ragroth here. So I think we're maybe about less than a week of Sparking Zero coming out, and I wanted to kind of get this video out there before the game came out. So I know I've done a lot of videos recently kind of about the final roster, kind of sort of meme, tongue-in-cheek kind of videos, more so celebrations or tribute kind of videos, but I wanted to actually kind of give my final thoughts on it. I would have released this video sooner, but if you can't tell, like, you know, I'm just getting over being really sick, but I think I'm at the point where I can at least record this video, thank God. So I wanted to jump into it. So I wanted to kind of just give my final thoughts on the base roster of the game. Not counting DLC or anything like that, counting the pre-order bonus, but not counting any future DLC like Superhero Dymo, you know, what we know now, basically. You know, of course, before we get started, don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, it would really help the channel out a lot. Of course, check out my Discord in the description below as well. But a couple of disclaimers I wanted to mention before I get started. So number one, this is just my opinion. Do not take it personally. This is just what I think about the roster. Number two, my opinion on the roster does not reflect my opinion on the entire game, especially because at the time we don't really have, I think, we haven't gotten like reviews and stuff. I mean, it seems like most stuff is positive. Most things seem to believe the game is going to be pretty good, but this is just talking about the roster. Yes, obviously the roster is a big factor in kind of the enjoyment level of fighting games, especially licensed ones like these, but this is just my opinion on the roster, nothing else. I might touch upon a couple other things, but this is mainly the roster. Disclaimer 3. I realized that in my sort of Bleach Rebirth of Souls, like why we need to buy it video, I said something that did not really age that well in it.
One thing I do have to give to Tamsoft, though, is that at least they're being transparent about what characters to expect from the game. Meanwhile, Sparking Zero, on the other hand, has refused to say anything regarding if there's going to be movie, GT, or original Dragon Ball characters in the base roster. Admittedly, they have said where the story mode will cover, however, not really kind of answering what the roster will cover, and I feel like the way Tamsoft spoke about it was more so just kind of talking about the overall game, not just the story mode. And this is something I really have to give to them there, because I prefer transparency. I'd rather rip the band-aid off of the disappointment as opposed to just waiting and maybe hoping and getting let down. And yeah, I know most of us aren't expecting like movie and GT characters and all that in the base roster for Sparking Zero at this point, but it would just be nice to get an official confirmation before we do find out the entire roster and there's nothing. It comes off as more honest and less scummy in a sense.
And I acknowledge that it aged pretty badly, but I'm happy it aged badly. Essentially, this was recorded, that was recorded even before the GT characters were announced. I think a little before they were. But the thing is, my point is that I do still appreciate Tamsoft's transparency on what to expect in the roster of the game. Even though it kind of worked out for hype's sake in this game's case, but that might not always be the case. Then the final disclaimer is, I've heard this a lot in my video where I did like the in memoriam of characters that did not make it back from Tenkaichi 3 and the Raging Blast games. Just because I made that video does not mean I dislike the roster. That is just kind of a recording like, hey, here's who didn't make it from these other games. And I know I missed 2 characters. I missed Space Garlic Jr. and Great Saiyaman 2. I'm sorry about that. And it was like a tongue-in-cheek kind of video. Like, it was sad, but not really meant to be taken that seriously. I think that's it with all my disclaimers. So yeah, let's get this started. So normally, I like to talk about the negatives before I jump into the positives. I like ending the video on a smile. And it is also a part of one of the things I do from one of my jobs too, so it works out in that regard. So let's talk about the things I don't like about the roster. So it's funny because I had this video planned out in my head a while back, and I was getting all ready to have this rant prepared about, GT characters not making it and movie characters not making it, and it's crazy that I actually am throwing that out for the most part now. So now my main complaint with the game is, where the hell is Gowasu at? How can you have the Goku Black Arc represented and not have Gowasu? Like, come on, guys. No, but jokes aside. But there are still some characters that are head scratchers why they didn't make it, that are upsetting. And I'm going to jump into them. So they are Super 17, Super Saiyan 1 or 3 Bardock, either and or 1, Pikkon, Nova Shenron, Beast Gohan, and Orange Piccolo. Now, if I had to kind of be a little forgiving and kind of maybe look a little more objectively as to why some of these characters didn't make it. In regards to Beast Gohan and Orange Piccolo, like I mean, I was really, really looking forward to playing Beast Gohan as soon as this game came out. I mean, if it wasn't obvious with how much I had this figure displayed. However, I guess it's like one of those things where it's like I kind of have to be aware of development cycles and all that. I think they did flat out say that they started development of this game before they really knew about Superhero, so it's like there's really not much they could do. I guess I just assumed since we got characters like Goku, Rose Black, and Hit, and Dragon Ball FighterZ when that came out, when those characters were actually more new than Superhero stuff was, I guess I just assumed that should apply to this game as well, but that is a different company, different game, different mindset, different scope, so things are different. I really think he would have made, like Beast Gohan would have made perfect sense as the pre-order character. I would have liked him way more than Daima Goku, but I guess I can understand since Superhero is the first pack and Beast Gohan is probably going to be one of the biggest draws, it would maybe be a bit foolish to take that away from that pack. And Orange Piccolo, like, yeah, I wanted to play as him, but not as intently as Beast Gohan. So, okay, maybe I can kind of forgive those. Another one maybe I could forgive is Nova Shenron, just because I kind of went in with the expectation that he would not be making the space roster, that we would barely be getting any GT characters, and he would not be one of them. He's very low priority usually. So I can maybe let him go. It does still suck, though, because he is one of my favorite characters from GT, and, of course, he is literally one of the only ones from Tenkaichi 3 that did not make it back. Now, the other three, I think, are a little harder to forgive. Pikkon, I admittedly had low expectations as well. When I see characters like Future Gohan make it, King Cold, Spopovich, the two movie characters that are most associated with Pikkon, Gogeta and Janemba, you would think Pikkon would be along for the ride as well. So, yeah, I can't really forget. This is a weird one. I don't know why Pikkon was excluded. I know he's not the highest priority character, and, like, Nail's in the game. Like, it's very rare we get Nail over Pikkon. I mean, I guess Universe 2 did it as well. But it's just, it's weird. It's, I don't know what their hate is with Pikkon. He's a very unique character. So that sucks. But I think probably the two biggest blunders are Super 17 and kind of a Super Saiyan form for Bardock. Super 17 is probably the most wildest one. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Super 17. He's like my favorite GT villain. He's usually always one of my mains when he's in a game. I'm usually like him and Janemba, and it sucks because he's been around since the first Tenkaichi. And it really sucks he's not back in this. And it's kind of funny because I know a lot of people don't like him, but I've actually seen a lot of other people pretty upset he's not in the game. And again, I'm really happy that GT is in it. Just I feel like I did get monkey pawed a little bit. Because again, Super 17 and Nova are like my favorite characters in GT. And they're the only two from Tenkaichi 3 that did not make it. Now granted, you know, it seems like whenever we're kind of starting over with the game technically isn't starting over, but resource-wise, I think to an extent it is, especially with just how much they pushed it. It seems like one of the GT villains does tend to get screwed. It is very rare we kind of get all three in at once. Typically, we'll only get one, you might get two, and then the other one will be added either DLC or via a sequel. And it just, unfortunately, maybe seemed like Super 17's turn. It probably doesn't help that Android 17 is already represented with two versions of himself in the game already, while like Baby Vegeta and Sin/Omega Shenron is not. I mean, granted, I know with Baby Vegeta you can argue all the other Vegetas, but I don't really consider that Vegeta, I consider that Baby. So I can maybe understand that. I mean, it still sucks, it still hurts. The GT trailer would have been even more hype than it already was if Super 17 was announced. Same with Nova. Now, you know, Super Saiyan Bardock is another weird one. Like, I didn't think he was a guaranteed shoo-in, but like, he's in a lot of games now. And the funny thing is, you know what game he was first playable in? Dragon Ball Z Connect. You know who made that game? Spike Chunsoft. So you're telling me that they exclude a transformation of Bardock, or that they include a transformation of Bardock in this crappy game that like nobody liked, but not their big magnum opus game? Especially because I just feel like Bardock just doesn't have much more new stuff to him. I know he has the Dragon Ball Super Alpha, which I personally don't really care for that much, honestly. I mean, it's nice he has it, but not really my favorite. It's just, and all these other games feature Super Saiyan Bardock or even Super Saiyan 3 Bardock, so it is a very weird exclusion. And it kind of does suck. Like, as much as I love base Bardock, I was kind of looking forward to seeing him get a little something else, a little extra to him. I would have loved to see what moveset they gave a Super Saiyan form of Bardock. You know, because all the other games he's been playable in, they don't really add a new moveset for the transformation. Xenoverse, it was just a power-up. And Fighters, unfortunately, the Super Saiyan form was just an ultimate. Would I rather it be an ultimate and not be added later? Or, I mean, I guess I'd rather it not be an ultimate and added later, but it is still a bummer. So I probably won't even be using Bardock as much as I hope, but I'll probably still play as him. These are kind of the head-scratcher ones, and I have to say, the pre-order bonus is really weak. It's really lame. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are excited for Daima. I know a lot of people really want to see Daima because it's Akira Toriyama's last thing. Last thing he made for Dragon Ball before he passed away. I know a lot of people really like Kid Goku. And while I've said many times before, I will happily watch Daima, and I am curious to see it, I just cannot give two craps about another Kid Goku, especially a base form Kid Goku. The only Kid Goku I really care about is GT Kid Goku. This could have definitely been, even if it wasn't Beast Gohan, you have Android 21. You have like Beelzebub from Sandland. You have you're gonna add a new What If form or something. Maybe someone that was only in Raging Blast 2, like Hachiyak, or, you know, well, I know they were in Raging Blast 1, like Super Saiyan 3 Broly or Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, something like that. That would have been far more exciting, in my opinion. I understand why they did it. For me personally, it's just not that exciting. I'm sorry. But that's really all I got to say for the negatives of the game. I was expecting to be, or negatives of the roster. I was expecting to say a lot more, but that's really it. Now, as for the positives, well, I would say everything else. So yeah, thanks for checking out the video. Another time, another place. Keep being awesome. Now, can you imagine if I ended the video like that? No, I will actually talk about the positives. So first, I do want to say that I think it's really cool that this is the first time that Dragon Ball Super gets to have a strong presence in the base roster of a game. I would argue maybe a little too strong of a presence, but even still, every game we've had Dragon Ball Super in, the timing was always bad, where like the game was already out, but Super was kind of just getting started. So like by the time the game was done, there still wasn't really enough Super kind of put characters in, or we were missing some arcs and all that, like Goku Black arc. It was mainly Goku Black and Turner Power. Those were kind of the two arcs that we kept kind of missing the base roster. So it is really cool to see Super actually get a strong presence, actually get representing the story from the get-go. There seems to be this big kind of rupture in the community where a lot of people hate Super and love GT. A lot of people hate GT and love Super. I personally like them both the same. I think there are certain things that one does better and the other does better than the other, and vice versa. I will say I think GT generally has cooler characters, cooler character designs. It has a little bit more grit to it. It does also have more nostalgia for me. I was like a teenager when GT came on, so obviously there's just that nostalgia factor to me. Super, I was a grown adult, so it's like things just don't feel as special, unfortunately. But I still do really like Dragon Ball Super and like a lot of characters. It's got a lot of dumb characters, admittedly, and GT is dumb characters too. We just never really have to worry about them making the game. Like, you're never going to see like Hayes Shenron or like the Power Brothers over like Future Gohan and Cooler, for instance, unless it was a very strongly GT focused game, which like never happens, at least anymore. So I think that's really cool, first of all, and it's also cool to see some characters that haven't been playable from Super playable in this game. Some of them are stupid that I don't really care for, but some I do really like, and some forms that we never really got properly playable. The main kind of standouts to me are Bergamo, who looks absolutely cool. I've always thought he was a cool character. I just didn't really like his gimmick of just turning big when he takes more damage, but they kind of found a way to still make him interesting while kind of maintaining that gimmick. I also always loved Annie Laza. I think it's really cool he's playable. I think he's the main representative for Universe 3 we needed. He's one of my favorite parts of the Tournament of Power. And also, it's kind of cool that Corrupt Zamasu is finally properly playable. I know he was kind of like playable in certain things in the Universe 2, but just picking a regular character. I know I wasn't super enthusiastic when he was first announced, but that's only because I was worried about who the other slots were going to. That's another thing I want to say too. A lot of times when you'll see me complain about a character making in the game, it's not that I intensely hate the character, it's that I'm worried about who this character made it over, essentially. Like, I was really upset that like Spopovich was in the game, like Yajirobe, but now that I'm seeing who we wound up getting, it doesn't bother me as much. I mean, yeah, it still sucks we didn't get like Super 17 and all that, but the wound is not as deep. So there's that. I do also think it's kind of cool. This is sort of a double-edged sword. That there were some characters from, I guess, like Z, and even the movies as well, that we don't see in that many games and have not been playable in that in a long time. These characters I'm talking about are King Cold, my goat King Cold, Spopovich, Babidi, and Evil Boo. Evil Boo I'm also really happy about too. Personally, I don't really give crap about Spopovich and Babidi, but I can at least appreciate the presence that at least there's someone refreshing that we don't really get to see that much. The last time these guys were playable, I think George W. Bush might have still been president. Like, that's crazy to think to me. Or at least Obama was just getting started as president. But I'm really happy for King Cold and Evil Boo. I think it's really cool they gave Evil Boo that move. He killed that stupid gunman guy that killed poor B, or at least shot B. Like, that was my complaint with Evil Boo, is that he had just had the same moves as Fat Boo and Tenkaichi. So at least they spiced him up a bit. Seeing King Cold with his Dragon Ball Super design is cool, though I hope he still has his Z design. But, and yeah, like, future Gohan making is a little bit of a shock, just because he's usually someone that's DLC or, I guess, sequel. Again, I know Sparking Zero is technically a sequel, but it's also kind of a reboot, too, and he's usually a low-priority character. Nail as well is also cool to see. I wasn't expecting Nail that much. So, yeah, bonus points there. Definitely great. Now, of course, you probably know the main things I'm happy about. GT making it in, and the amount... We got a lot more than I thought we were going to get. Admittedly, I thought Super 17 was more of a shoo-in than he actually wound up being. But I thought we were going to just get the Super Saiyan 4s and the 3 villains. And, like, even though subjectively maybe this isn't what I would have gone with, it's like, objectively, I can definitely appreciate it. It's so cool seeing baby Vegeta get all of his forms back. It's cool seeing Oob and Majub in the game. I like Oob and Majub, but I figured he was in the same boat as Nova Shenron, though. I thought he had no shot. Now, Pan, I would have probably highly preferred Super 17 or Nova Shenron, but honestly, I'll probably still play as her. And I know I was in the camp that was arguing that, like, look, just give us Super Saiyan 4 Goku, add GT Kid Goku later, but it's still nice to see him. It sucks we didn't get GT Vegeta, but GT Vegeta was never playable in Tenkaichi 3, so it's like, I figured he didn't have much of a shot anyway. Hopefully he'll be added, though, DLC, maybe like Super 17 and Nova. Really don't think we needed Sin Shenron. I think we just needed Omega, but it is what it is. Whatever. And it's not. The transformation where he sucks in all the balls is cool. So I guess it gives us that at least. But yeah, it's so cool seeing GT make the game when a lot of us were so certain it would be DLC. Then the movies, like, oh my god, the movies. I was so worried about Cooler and Janemba making this game. You don't even know how worried I was. And I was just settling. I'm like, you know what? As long as we get their final forms, I'm happy. We don't need anything else. I love Turles and Bojack and Android 13, but if they're DLC, that's fine. I get it. And not only did Cooler and Janemba get all their forms, but we got all these other movie characters as well. And all their forms well for the most part. And some of these movie characters, again, they haven't been playable since, since Tenkaichi 3. Hirudegarn, Garlic Jr., and Dr. Relo especially. I did not expect these characters all to be in the base roster. DLC, sure, but not base roster. So you don't know how nice it is to see them. Even if I don't like them as much as, like, Cooler and Janemba, like, it's still so nice to see them. I still really am looking forward to playing as them. And I do really have to say, like, a lot of us kind of are so jaded with how things are today. Things are kind of pushed off for DLC, pushed off for just making additional money. I really have to kind of tip my hat to Spike for not doing what a lot of people were thinking they would do, or even expecting. Like, I've seen people say that they want GT characters to be DLC for none to be base roster. Same with movies. Like, just because it would make the DLC better. It's like, to me, the base roster is always the most important part. Yes, DLC is great. It's a great thing to look forward to, but it shouldn't make the base roster inherently worse. And there's still other movie characters to add anyway. Same with GT characters. So thank you, Spike, for not doing what a lot of these people thought that you were going to do and not being as greedy. I mean, again, you're probably still going to be greedy, but at least it's not to the extent we thought. And I do have to say, as someone that has followed fighting games religiously since probably like the early 2000s, you got to understand that this whole thing with kind of advertising a certain amount of characters and then being like, oh, just kidding, there's like 24 more characters near the very end, that like never happens. So them doing that is absolutely crazy, and that's the only reason why some of us thought that the movie character leak was fake when it first came out, because we just didn't think, like, this is more than 164 characters. There's no way in hell. And then little did we know they were kidding the whole time. So it's really awesome they did that. I mean, yeah, like, of course, they literally trolled us movie fans. They literally cut all of the amount of slots that the non-safe movie characters, because the only one that kind of made it, they wanted to 64 was Broly, who's the friggin' safest one that we all expected. Which I do, you know, it is a little trolling, but this is the good way to troll people. This is the nice way to do it, where it pays off in the end, where we don't get like screwed over basically. So hats off to them. I did not expect them to do that, especially with the GT trailer where it said a super character trailer. The S was lowercase, and then there was like something, 2 words that started with G and then T, and the G and the T were uppercase. I forget what the words were. I think it was like great trailer or something like that. But yeah, like hats off to like them doing the good kind of trolling there. That was really cool. Really good job there. But like, and you know, like all the other forums and redundant forums, like yeah, like it does still feel bloated, but seeing who we got at the end of the day makes me feel a little better. It still does kind of suck they didn't go with the Raging Blast method, because I would have loved maybe for like, for instance, like, you know, because I was one of those people that I'm like, just have DBZ and Dragon Ball Super Future Trunks just be the same character and just be alternate costumes. And so many people have this insane hatred of Future Trunks in Dragon Ball Super. I will never understand why. Saying like, no, they have to be separate characters. And like, yeah, that's great, but, you know, we all like how DBZ Future Trunks looks more, fine. But it would have been nice to have that look for Trunks, but with the Dragon Ball Super moves. You get what I'm saying? So that's kind of one thing I don't like about kind of this insane era separation, is that I might like the moves of another era more, but I might like the look of another one more. Now, it's a shame it seems like we might not be able to mix and match them. Maybe I'm wrong there. I've tried not to spoil myself too much on the game, but maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. But yeah. Just throwing that out there. But like, yeah, so that's really all I can say about the roster. I guess if I had to give it a rating out of 10, I'm going to have to give it a very Game Informer inspired rating. We'll say in honor of them kind of shutting down. I'm going to give the roster a 9.75 out of 10. It's very close to perfection. There's a couple characters that not making it are a big bummer, that does maybe shave off that 0.25. I could probably, you know, if I really wanted to, give this a 10, but no Super 17 is like, you know, so I think this is fair, 9.75 out of 10. And honestly, it's very rare that I give a base roster of a fighting game, a modern fighting game, this high of a score. The last time maybe I would do it is maybe Smash Ultimate, and that was Smash Ultimate, for Christ's sake. But yeah, that's really all I got. So guys, I'm going to leave it to you. Like, you know, what do you ultimately think about this base roster? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you love it? Are you mixed on it? What rating would you give it? What would you like to see change? I would maybe down the road when maybe it gets full DLC support after it's done, maybe do another rating. But it's like it's going to be a 10. It's probably going to be a 10 out of 10. Like, so I can't really see that. You know, there's not much room to kind of go down or up. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Of course, like the video if you like it, dislike if you dislike it. Definitely consider subscribing if you like this video and some of my others. It would really help the channel out a lot. I'm so happy to be past 1,000 subscribers. I'm actually at 1,200 subscribers. Thank you so much for all the support. I'm about to apply for monetization, so wish me luck there. Of course, I also have the Discord in the description below as well, where you can hang out with me and some of my IRL friends. But thank you so much for checking out this video. And as I always say, another time, another place. Keep being awesome. But seriously, Gowasu DLC when?